Loneliness is not exclusive to people who are physically or circumstantially alone. This is a stereotype or an assumption that we can often make towards people who feel lonely. Okay, I have a question for you. Would you have guessed that when I woke up this morning, I was really sad? Or did you make an assumption, and that's okay if you did, because we all do. Did you make an assumption about the people that you watch online or the friends that are little social butterflies or they look happy on the outside, right? You may make assumptions around the people around you that they don't get you, that they don't understand your loneliness. I know that I have made those assumptions too about people around me and then been surprised around the struggles that they face because I didn't really know them intimately. And so today, we're going to take a layer off this conversation. We're going to take the surfacey stuff off and we're going to scuba dive into the deep waters of loneliness. So let's dismantle some things first and foremost. First, you can be a social butterfly. You can be an extrovert. You can be a people person and still feel lonely. Loneliness is not exclusive to people who are physically or circumstantially alone. And I want you to hear this, really hear this, because I also want you to know, I see you. I see you. You are not alone. And yet, sometimes we feel that way through the sense of loneliness. I've always struggled with loneliness, and I've never fully understood it until the last couple weeks, really just like seeking out, like, God, what are you teaching me in this loneliness? What are you teaching me as I'm feeling this suffering of looking around me and seeing all these people and having all of these connections and all of these lovely people that know me and love me and want to be in relationship with me, and I still feel so lonely. This really leaves me with the question of, what is loneliness? Like, if we could tangibly see it, what would it look like? I'm going to do my best shot because everybody's going to have a different experience around this. But I want to see if this is something that really sparks for you. Like, oh my goodness, this is how it feels for me too. For me, if I had to like tangibly describe what loneliness feels like, it feels like a giant ball on the inside, like the center of my body. Sometimes at the pit of my stomach, but like it's this like giant ball on the inside of me that is made of like titanium. It doesn't, like, nothing can penetrate it. Nothing can get through it. And it's empty. And so it's this giant ball. It's this giant space that doesn't matter what things I put in my life, what noise, what stuff, it doesn't get filled up. And so it's this constant feeling of emptiness, of sadness, of grief. Like, there's all of this space and yet it's not being filled. I gotta tell you, in a lot of ways, I think that this is just the like perpetual feeling that we are always moving through by being incomplete in some way, right? Because we're here on earth, we're not in heaven, we're not in our perfect design. We're constantly struggling with suffering and death and pain and grief and, you know, imperfect relationships and those things that would have been so comforting for somebody to say that they're not saying, or those relationships where you wish they would initiate and they don't, or, you know, all of these different things that happen that have us feel this sense of disappointment and let down and grief and sadness and a sense of loneliness, like we're invisible. We're struggling through those imperfect dynamics in an imperfect world. And so there's this space that is often missing. I don't want this to be depressing. In fact, I think we get to spend a little bit of time here acknowledging, hey, this is what it is. We got to learn how to move it. We got to learn how to move through it. We got to learn how to be with it in a way that is not getting us out of the game so many times, distracting us, leading us astray, leading us to a place where we're trying to like save ourselves from it. We're trying to run away from it, but to actually rest in this and say, I am experiencing this. God, use this in a way that would glorify you, and use this in a way that would comfort me to know that you have a plan, that this is purposeful in some way. And that leads me to so many of the awarenesses that I've had in the last couple of weeks around loneliness. How, you know, for the first time in my life, I, instead of, you know, either being all consumed by my loneliness or pretending it doesn't exist, I'm letting God use it in a way that I've never experienced before. And I want to share this to encourage you. And I also understand that many of you may be in a place where you're not quite ready to let go of the attitude of like, it's not fair. It's not fair that I feel lonely, right? There's this almost this anger, this frustration that we experience sometimes, or like the things that we're constantly trying to fill in that space. But the truth is that loneliness, the tears that we feel, the pain that we feel, the suffering that we feel from that ball inside of us that is empty, those tears get deposited in heaven. God doesn't ignore them or pretend they're not there. He feels every tear. He sees every sadness. He sees every tear, every moment of crying that we have, every struggle, every disappointment. He sees all of it. And he's asking us to respond in a way that trusts him, that trusts who he is, and that his perfect plan is being acted out, and that we get to have that patience to hold out and be in grace and be in faith of the times and experiences and seasons of our life where things are not perfect, and where that interaction wasn't perfect, or that person said something that was unkind and it hurt us, or that thing happened and it was so frustrating or discouraging in some way. Like, he's asking us to move through those experiences with grace, with forgiveness, with patience, with love, and know that he is doing his perfect work, even though it doesn't feel perfect to us. And this is the struggle. This is the struggle, my friends, that I have had my whole life, because it never made sense to me. I tried to fill my life with all of these people and all of these experiences and all of these things, and yet I still felt lonely. And even sometimes when I was the closest with the Lord, I felt that loneliness even more. Isn't that interesting? Do we think sometimes that our faith and the strength of our faith somehow makes life easier or more comfortable? It doesn't. It does mean that we feel deeply. It does mean that we don't just feel the imperfectness or the struggle of life, but we also feel the sense of longing for that perfect life, for the things around us to not include suffering or pain or discomfort, to be in an intimate, present, tangible relationship with God, right? We feel that sadness and that longing on both sides. But one of the things that I have learned so many times over, and like, God has been bringing this so many times, and there was just a certain season that I was not willing to listen or notice or be present to this lesson. But now, as I sit with my sadness, my loneliness, the times that I feel invisible, I am reminded of some things that I am very clear God has brought to my attention. There's something that he is actively doing in our suffering. There's something he is actively doing in our loneliness and our sadness. Not that he inflicts it on us just cause or to punish us, but truly allows those testing moments in our life to ask us, do we trust him? Do we actually trust him? Is our faith strong? Are we conditional on it? Or is it unconditional? Are we going to choose to love him and worship him even if, and especially if, things aren't going the way we want them? That's the first thing that I've learned through loneliness. The second thing that I've learned is that loneliness reveals a longing that is often good. It's often wholesome, right? My longing is to be seen and to be understood and to be loved. Those are good things. But when I look for those things in creation, in other people, I'm going to find imperfect fillers of that space. And then it will feel even more disappointing, right? When people look for total love and identity and completion in their spouse, they find themselves disappointed and often divorced. When people want to, are looking for that sense of identity and purpose in their kids, oftentimes their kids make decisions that they want, and suddenly their heart is broken so much so that they can't function because they've put everything, their identity, everything into that child. And now they don't know who they are apart from that child not only being here, but also being in a way in which respects or is in agreement with how you live or what you believe, right? So there's these things that we try to put in place of this loneliness, of this ball that is empty. And then we find that that's not perfect and that's not complete, and it ends up creating more disappointment. That space is not meant to be filled by creation. It is meant to be filled by the Creator, and it will only perfectly be filled when we're in heaven. There's always going to be that sense of loneliness or invisibility in the world that we live in, because again, we live in an imperfect world. And what this tangibly looks like is relationships that are frustrating or sad or hurt your feelings. I know one of the things in particular that I struggle with that many of you may relate to is that oftentimes in my friendships and relationships, I am the initiator. Nothing happens until I initiate. Nothing happens until I reach out. And it's always something that I have struggled with and just had to constantly give to the Lord, because I get frustrated and discouraged and hurt about it, even though I have to understand this relationship. If I'm looking for perfection, I'm not going to find it. If I'm looking for being disappointed, I will find it. And I get to have grace and patience and transparency in a way that doesn't put the blame on them and force them to do something that I want them to do, but to truly meet them where they are and see what's actually going on in a way where we can come together and be stronger and be encouraged by each other, also understanding that this relationship will never be perfect. I feel sad when I am busy like a bee on a Sunday morning and sit by myself on a Sunday night. I feel sad when I just want a hug or want a friend to send me an encouragement, even when I didn't send something to them that day, or when I didn't have to ask for it. There are things that we long for and want in our relationships, in our real, tangible, real world relationships, that sometimes they don't come in the way that we expect or think or want. And God is the one that comforts us in a way that no one else can. When I heard people say that, I often felt like slighted or cheated a little bit. I'm like, yeah, baloney. Like, the Bible can't hug me. The Bible can't send me a text that says, hey, like, I love you. I see you. I know you're having a hard day. I imagine you might be having a hard day. Let me pray for you, whatever it is, right? And yet there's something that is really interesting that starts to happen as you are diligently and unconditionally studying what the word says. There's two things. One, the word itself comforts you. It gives rest to your spirit. But secondly, it puts you in an attitude and an approach of service and generosity that is genuine. So this morning I woke up and I was really sad. And I spent some time with the word, and I spent some time journaling and just like pleading to the Lord and praying and saying, listen, this is how I'm feeling, and just give me word, give me encouragement through your word. I'm studying and I'm in it. Like, just encourage and fill my soul with rest and with peace. And as I read through the word, there wasn't some special magic word that showed up on my mirror. I was studying and in the word. And what I found was verses that didn't just encourage me, but encourage the people that I love. Encourage the people that I knew were maybe having a hard week. Encourage the people that maybe didn't expect a message from me today, and yet I knew it would encourage them. And so instead of staying in my own bubble, which is so easy to do, you guys, like, I feel you if you're this way. I am this way sometimes too. Like, to be in my own bubble, instead, to expand my love, and that love that I would love to have filled in this space, to expand that love out, to show the love of Christ, to be compassionate, to be sincere and genuine to other people, and to know that that is enough. That not only is God's promise that he will comfort me, that he is always here, that he goes before me, but also that I can do that same thing with others. Remind yourself that there are people around you that feel the same that you do. You're not alone in how you feel. You're not alone in where you are or what you're experiencing. And you're also not alone in that need to be comforted, to be loved, to be seen. I want to hear all your thoughts, all your perspectives, even if they're private. Come DM me, come message me, tell me what you thought about this, what you're struggling with, what you're moving through. Let me pray for you. Let me be engaged in your life in a way that supports you. There are people around you that will come into your life and be an embodiment of the hands and feet of Christ, and allow those people to come in, allow those people to give you that hug, allow those people to serve you, allow those people to make you dinner, allow those people to come in and love you, because there are people who want to love you. And part of this is allowing those people to actually serve in a way where you are ready to receive it. Hope you have an amazing day. I will see you on the next video.